In this video, we're going to learn how to script health bars for our players in Horizon Worlds. Stick around. Hi guys, my name is Tony and welcome back to Jackal Dude Gaming. Here, I like to have fun in VR, but I love helping you have fun there too. Now, in the first episode of this series, we learned how to utilize player persistent variables to set a health value for our players. We also learned how to take away that health and make something happen when that health reaches zero. Today, we are going to design a health bar, and we're going to script it so it accurately represents how much health that player has, and we're going to script that health bar will follow the player it's representing. We are going to alter some scripts from the first video, so if you haven't seen that one yet, be sure to check that out right up here. But if you haven't seen the video, that's okay. You can still pick up some useful scripting concepts in this video. If these series are helping you out, let me know in the comments below, especially if you have any questions. Like this video if you found it helpful, and think about subscribing and clicking that bell notification so you know when the next video in the series drops. So there's a lot of work to do today. Let's get started. Okay, here we are back in our player health world, where in the last video we learned how to set up player persistent variables to set a health value, and we made that paint altar over there to take away health, and when we went to 0 health we get spawned back here. Today we are going to make a health bar that represents our current health value. So we're going to start by going into build mode by pressing down on our thumbstick, and we are going to build an health bar. Now normally I like to fast forward through this stuff, but I do want to kind of discuss what my process in making this bar. So I want to start with one of these, and I want to start with one of these marshmallow looking guys. So let's get ourselves around the same size as yeah. We're going to use, again, our little spawn point fella as a mannequin. And I want these little marshmallows to kind of represent a puck of health. So I'm going to squeeze this down just a little bit. Let's make this a little bit smaller. It doesn't need to be that big. And then we are going to change the color. We're going to turn this into like a fun player green. Maybe like that. Oh, let's manually make the greenest green of health green. There we are. That is a green health node if I've ever seen one. So, and I think for this video, let's turn snapping on so it looks a little level. For this video, I think we want to change the maximum health to like 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this bottom point with the duplicate tool and just stack 5 of these on top of themselves. 3, 4. Oh, that's fine. Oh no. This one, we lost the pattern of it. 5. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Now I want to take this and I'm going to size this down to where it's not quite as thick as these. I think that's pretty good. We're going to highlight that. Well, actually, let's paint this first. Paint. Style. And we're just going to make this black. Let's make that black. Black. There we go. All right. And then we're going to highlight it again. We're going to move that to the center of this puck. And then we're going to stretch it to the center of the top puck. There you are. That's just kind of like a little makeshift health thing. Now, that is our health bar. Ta-da! You can make that a little more intricate if you want, but I like kind of the big round health nodes indicating that there's health there. And then when we start taking these away, you'll notice that they're gone because of the black bar that's still there. Speaking of which, we want to take one of these away when we lose health. To do that, we need to manipulate these individually. So we're going to go in and we're just going to start taking out the properties panel of them all. And we're going to label them. So simply going from top to bottom, we're going to name this HP1. We're going to turn off the collidability. Boop. Turn animated on because that just helps sometimes with like scripting stuff when it requires movement. And we're going to do the same thing going down. Okay, we went in and then we labeled each of them HP 1 through 5. Now that they are all labeled and have their collidability turned off and animated turned on, and all their properties panels are accessible, we are now going to group everything together. So remember to do that, we're going to hold down our index trigger. We're going to slide our selector through all the objects, including the bar. And we are going to stick our cursor back inside this group selection, and we're going to move our thumbstick to the left, and that groups that object. So we are now going to leave our cursor back in, press up on the properties panel, and now we have the properties panel for the entire group. We are going to name the entire group the HpBar. So now when we move this with our player, we'll move the whole group rather than having to move all the individual pucks. We will also turn collidability off on this and activate animated. Now, that's it for now. We just needed to set all of that up so we have the properties panels accessible from all of the groups, or all of the pucks, and we've grouped it all together and have the grouping named and ready. So let's go over to the script that we made last time. Now, I know in the last video I said we weren't going to have this control object script attached to this object for much longer, but we're actually going to keep this because I'll explain that a little more later. But basically, this is going to stay the control object that is going to control all of the modifications we are doing to the player persistent variable. Because later on, we're going to make a movement script for the health bar, but that needs to be a local script so there's no lag. And for whatever reason, Horizon World doesn't like us messing around with player persistent variables within local scripts. So we're going to have two scripts. This one that we've already started is going to stay a server-side script. Remember, we changed that up here. We're going to leave this to default so it stays server-side. And then later on, we'll make a local script for movement. But for now, let's do what a health bar does and indicate what our current health is. So the idea is when we lose a health, we lose a puck. To start with, we need to make variables for not only the health bar, but each individual puck. So we're going to go over to this variable tab, and we're just going to make like 6 new variables. So remember, make each of these variables an object and name it appropriately. HP1. And I'll go through this real fast. And finally, we're going to make a variable for the whole bar itself, and we're just going to call that HpBar. And also set that to an object. Now, like we said when we made our health bar over here, we actually want to change our health to 5. So when we enter the world, we want to set that to 5. And when we, remember, when we die or when our health equals 0, we want to reset our health back to 5. So instead of just changing these to 5, let's just make a number variable. So we'll call this one max HP. We'll turn that into a number type and hit confirm. And then here in the variables tab, we will change that to 5. So now we can just drag that over to where that 3 was and drag it over to where the second 3 was. Blam. So now if we ever want to change our max health, we can just do it here or within the control objects properties panel. Now that we have everything labeled out, we want to start altering our HP check event. So we have it so if the health of our persistent variable for the player is less than or equal to 0, we respawn the player and reset the health. But we also want to set what happens at all the other number values. So we're going to start with another if statement. If we want to grab our operator first. So if we're going to take our less than operator. And again, we want to, if we take 1 damage, we want to get rid of that first puck. So 1 less than 5 would be 4. So we're going to take a number input and we're going to change this to 4. And what is less than 4? It's going to be our get. We want to get the player persistent variable and see if that is less than 4. So persistent variable of health For who? For the player that we've made a variable for in the last video up here. Now, what do we want to happen if the player persistent variable for the player is less than 4? Well, we want to get rid of that puck, so we will go over to Actions, and we will just set object visibility. And we will set the object of HP1, because that is the first puck on the top of there. So we'll set HP1 visibility to false. Now, if we lose health, that first puck will definitely go away, because it'll be less than 4. Sorry, actually less than 5. Instead of saying less than 5, we can actually just do less than max health. If this is less than max health, we're definitely getting rid of that first puck. So we will turn the visibility of that puck to false. But if we gain health, or if we respawn with full health, we want to turn that puck back on, its visibility back on. So we are going to use an else statement along with this if. So we will take else, and we will plop it under here. Nope, we don't want to. Yes. So, no. So when you put an else statement under if, you want to put it so then this bar attaches. You want to make sure this kind of teal bar is attaching the if and else to make sure this is the else of this if. Sorry, I know that's a lot of else if talk. Basically what we're doing with else is saying the opposite of what the if is. So if this happens, we're going to do this. Else, as in if anything else opposite of this happens, we will do something else. So if the health is less than max health, we definitely want to get rid of that first HP block. But unless it's opposite of less than max health, which would be max health or greater, we will then we'll just copy this line. Else, we will set HP1's visibility to true. So if we gain health or respawn with full health, we will make sure that indicator for that first top puck is filled back in. Hopefully that makes sense, but now it gets even easier. So instead of going and redoing this all over again, we can just take the if statement, drop it here, hit the duplicate tool, and do the same thing for the else statement. Drag that under here, just like this, hit duplicate, make sure these are attached, and then we just switch some of these values. So instead of max HP, we'll delete that and we'll put another number variable. Now we will do is less than 4. If it's less than 4, we want to get rid of the next HP puck, which would be HP2. And then plop HP2 in both of these lines. And now we're just going to keep copying these all the way down to where we have one left. So again, duplicate here. Duplicate the else under the if. And change the value. So we'll just change this to 3. And we'll change the variables to puck3. And then one more time. Duplicate. Whoops. And one more time, duplicate, and then duplicate the else underneath the if, change the value to less than 2, and change the puck number to puck4. Now, you could do this one more time to make the bar completely empty when you have 0, but remember, if it is equal to 0 or less than 0, we are actually just going to teleport the player and then refill its health. So, unless you really want to have that instant moment of like having a completely empty health bar and then refilling it when they respawn, I just let them keep that last puck. And then, when you have one, you die, you get refilled up, bada boom, bada bang. Okay, now remember, we set up all of these variables, but this object still doesn't know what those variables are yet. So we got to open up the properties panel, and now you see we have a ton of variables. So that's why we kept all these properties panels out. So we'll take the control objects properties panel, and drag it over here just to make this part a little bit faster for us. We will drag HpBar up. And remember, we labeled all of these specifically for a reason. So we will move HP1 to HP1, HP2 to HP2, so on and so forth. Okay, now everything is as it should be. We're going to reset our world. It's always good practice. And then we're back here. All right, now we're into the world. Even though this doesn't follow us yet, it should still indicate where our health is. So if we put our hand in the altar, yeah, we lost the damage, and now we lost a puck. Make sure it all works. So we will do this until we get respawned. Yep, and now that we've respawned at the spawn point, our health is set to 5, and our pucks indicate that we are at full health again. Perfect. Now we just need to get this object to follow us around. Now remember, like I said, in order to do that, we will make a script that will go directly onto the health bar. But we need to make that a local script. And remember, when we make local scripts on objects, we have to make sure that object has ownership of the player. So we can still do that on our server-side script. We'll set the ownership of the HpBar to the player, and then we'll send an event to this script we'll make. So first, what we want to do, under Actions, scroll towards the bottom, transfer ownership of object to player. We'll put that right under here. The object we want ownership transferred of is the HpBar, and we want it transferred to this player. And that's player 1. Now, we also need to send an event over to the HpBar, indicating that it can start following the player and who the player is, and we're going to do that with an event. So we are going to send event to object. Remember, we're sending the event to the HpBar because that's what we'll have the other script attached to. So we'll put HpBar there instead of self. We'll name this event, we'll just name it HpBar. Send the HpBar event to HpBar. That makes sense. Okay, this is one thing we're doing a little different with events. So when we send the event to the HpBar, we want the HpBar to follow the player. The thing is, we are only identifying what the player is in this script. But we can tell the other script the player ID by using a parameter. So when we send the event, not only are we sending the event what it's called, but we're also sending a player ID. So we can take our player1 variable that we made and put that into new parameter. So when the player enters the world, we are assigning that player to be called player1, and then we are telling HpBar, along with this event, we are telling who player1 is. Now this script is ready. This script is all done, and we are ready to work on the follow script. So we will grab another script gizmo, open her up, and remember, we like to name our scripts so we don't get confused. We'll just call this HpFollow. We'll get rid of this. Okay. So remember, we are receiving an event. So when event is received, we'll start with that. What event is received? It will be HpBar. Now, you can see where it says new parameter. It's not just going to throw in the parameter. We have to search for a possible parameter where we've been sent. So under new parameter, we're going to change this. We know that we're sending a player ID over. So we will search for the player type parameter, and then we'll just call this PLID, player ID. So if this event sends us a player variable, we will call this player ID for now. But again, just like the first script, if we want to use this player ID in a bunch of other lines in our script, we have to set it a variable. Can't stress enough how many times if you receive information from an event, take that information and make it a variable. So we'll do that now. And just to avoid confusion and knowing we're talking about the same player, we'll also call this player1 in this script. and make that a player type. We will then set it, so set to, we want to set our player1 variable in this script to the player ID that was sent to us through this events parameter. Bam! So now this script knows that we are talking about the same player that this script is talking about. Remember, we want this to be a local script. The reason we want it to be a local script is because it'll run natively on our headset and it'll just be a lot faster. When we have that health bar following us, we want it to follow us one for one. We don't want it lagging behind or glitching behind. So we're going to go ahead and remember, go up to the script settings, and we'll switch this to local. And this will work a lot better because in the other script, we had set the HpBar, the object we are attaching the script to, and we have made us, the player, the owner of that object, which is why now we can attach a local script to that owned object. All right. Now that we received the event to kickstart this thing, we got our player variable, and we know what player we're talking about. We need to make another loop. Just like we made the HP check loop on that script, we need to make a loop that will have this HpBar constantly follow our player. So we're going to make another event to send to ourselves. Send event to object. Put that under here after we receive the HpBar event. We are going to send this event to ourselves, and we are just going to call this HpFollow. Confirm. Now, we are going to put when event is received as a whole new line. We can put HpFollow. Now, what do we want to happen when we receive this event? We want to move the HpBar to the player. So we will motion move to. You want to use move to and not move by or move by over time, because that'll add a delay. And remember, we are going to do this pretty much every frame because we're looping this event. So the illusion is that we're actually teleporting the object to the player every frame, giving the illusion of it following the player. So we want to move self. That's correct because we're putting this on the HpBar. We want to move it to the player, so not this random vector. But we don't want to move it directly to the player, because if we move it directly to the player, the HpBar is going to be like inside of the player and no one's going to be able to see that. We want to move it to slightly above the player on the y-axis, going straight up. So what we're going to do is add an operator. So we want to send it to the player, but additionally, so the add operator, we want to move it to slightly above the player. So first, let's get the player's position. Here under operators, we scroll all the way down to player, and we will get to position of player. I like coming from the torso of the player, because the torso really doesn't rotate too much, so it to me, it makes a more fixed position, but you can probably still do this on the player head. But from the player torso, what player are we talking about? Remember, this is a separate line, which is why we had to make a variable, the player1. Blam. And again, we don't want it directly inside of the player. We want it slightly above the player, which would be moving along the y-axis, the up and down axis of the torso. So we can't just add a number. We have to add a number specifically to a vector, which is a position. So we will put a vector input into the add spot. And when you look at a vector input, you have three numbers. Remember, this is X, Y, Z. We want to move it slightly above the Y direction from the player's torso. So we're just going to put a 1 here. Let's see how that looks. We're going to move it basically 1 meter above the central point of the player's torso. And again, to make this happen every frame, we need to resend the event to ourselves. So from here, we're just going to copy this. All right. And we set this to local. Okay. So this all should work. We should now be able to go into our game and have that bar follow us around. Wait, we have to attach this script to the HpBar first. I do that all the time. So we open the HpBar's properties panel, and then we will simply add our new script called HpFollow. And we already identified player 1 within the script, so we don't need to do that. Simple as that. So we'll press up to go to preview mode. And yeah, oh my gosh. See, as we move around, this is moving around 1 for 1. Kind of hard to see it from here, so let's pull out the selfie stick. Yeah, check that out. Yeah, moving 1 meter above the torso is almost perfectly above my head. It does block my name, so if you wanted to, you can make the HpBar smaller or move it up higher, whatever you want. But first, let's go see if it still works at tracking our health. So let's move over to the pain altar. See, now I don't know how to properly film this. So we're in the pain altar. I'm going to stick my hand in, and we're going to lose a health puck, hopefully. So here we go. Yep, we lost one, and now we lost a pug. And look, it's still following me. Yes. One more time. Yeah, and it teleported me, reset my health, and it's still following me. Amazing. There you have it, guys. We have set our health, we had made a health bar, and it follows us even as we gain and lose health. Also, I almost forgot about our control object. This control object is going to stay a control object, so we will call this HPControl, just the same way we named the script. And to make sure it's not an eyesore, all we're going to do is turn off the visibility and collidability. So it's just an invisible box that controls our health. And if we go, we can always see the wireframe in case we need to access it again. And when we go to preview mode, the box is gone, but it's still doing its job. See, yeah, it's working. Well, in the next video, what I'd really like to do is set up a better way to assign these to different players in case you have multiple players coming into your world. And I would actually like to make more ways to take away player health and add to player health. So, if you want to know when that video drops, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification to know exactly when it drops. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.